Hello and welcome to today's presentation, Katzenbach v. McClung, Desegregating Dining, presented by the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum, whose mission is to honor anti-slavery abolitionists, their work to end slavery, and the legacy of that struggle, and strive to complete the second and ongoing abolition, the moral conviction to end racism. The Supreme Court case, Katzenbach v. McClung, was decided in 1964. The case centered around the constitutionality of Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibited racial discrimination in places of public accommodation, including restaurants. The specific issue in this case was whether the Act's provisions applied to a small business restaurant in Birmingham, Alabama, called Ollie's Barbecue, owned by Ollie McClung, which served only white customers and was located near an interstate and state highway, therefore regularly receiving customers that were traveling across multiple states in the U.S. The owners of Ollie's Barbecue, the McClungs, argued that their restaurant was not a place of public accommodation and therefore was not subject to the Act's provisions. They contended that since they did not engage in interstate commerce, they could not be regulated by Congress under the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution. The Commerce Clause is a provision in the U.S. Constitution that gives Congress the power to regulate commerce among the several states. The Commerce Clause has been interpreted broadly by the Supreme Court, giving Congress the authority to regulate not only the movement of goods and services across state lines, but also activities that have a substantial effect on interstate commerce. This includes activities such as labor relations, environmental protection, and civil rights. Overall, the Commerce Clause has been a key tool for Congress to regulate the economy and promote national unity. The McClungs also argued that the Act violated their rights under the Fifth Amendment's Due Process Clause. The Fifth Amendment says to the federal government that no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, uses these same words, called the Due Process Clause. Although a district court in Alabama originally ruled in the McClungs' favor, the Attorney General, Nicholas Katzenbach, appealed it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, in an ununanimous decision, rejected the McClungs' argument and upheld the constitutionality of Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The court held that the restaurant was indeed a place of public accommodation, and that Congress had the power to regulate it under the Commerce Clause. The court further held that the Act did not violate the Due Process Clause, as it was a valid exercise of Congress's power to regulate interstate commerce. The court held that the Act was a legitimate exercise of Congress's power to promote equal access to public accommodations and to prevent discrimination on the basis of race. It also further noted that the Act did not deprive the McClungs of their property without due process of law, as they were free to continue operating their restaurant as long as they complied with the Act's provisions. The court noted that while Ollie's Barbecue may have been a small, locally owned restaurant, it still engaged in activities that affected interstate commerce. For example, the restaurant purchased food and supplies from out-of-state vendors, and its customers may have come from other states. Testimonies during the case demonstrated that Black travelers were much less likely to stop and spend money in towns with segregated dining and other public spaces. Therefore, segregated businesses could in fact impact the local economy and affect interstate commerce. The court reasoned that even a small, locally owned business could have a significant impact on interstate commerce, and that Congress had the power to regulate such businesses under the Commerce Clause. The court's decision in Katzenbach v. McClung was a significant victory for the civil rights movement, as it upheld the constitutionality of a key provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a landmark piece of legislation in U.S. history. It prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on July 2, 1964, after a long and contentious battle in Congress, and after the efforts of the civil rights movement that preceded it. Overall, the decision of Katzenbach v. McClung affirmed Congress's power to regulate private businesses that engaged in activities affecting interstate commerce and to prohibit discrimination in places of public accommodation. The decision also helped to promote greater equality and opportunity for Americans of all races and other marginalized groups across the nation. The ruling was a major victory for the civil rights movement, and it helped to dismantle the system of racial segregation in public accommodations across the United States. Thank you for attending today's presentation. Please help us by completing a brief survey at the link on your screen and also in the video description. Your feedback will help NAHOF receive funding and help plan future projects. Additionally, please contact NAHOF with any questions or comments, or if you're interested in learning more about the organization. Don't forget to follow us on social media, and we hope to see you at our next presentation. Thank you.